Welcome back for some more learning, third graders. Our purpose today is to determine the point of view. Say that with me. I can determine the point of view. So what is point of view? Well, point of view is what someone thinks and feels. So our narrator in our story, the character or the narrator is someone that's telling the story. The person outside of the story could be telling the story, or a character inside the story could be telling the story. And the narrator will have a feeling or a thought about the characters and events in the text. So words that might describe how someone thinks or feels is someone might feel that they love something. Someone might feel admiration, or they might admire something or someone. Someone might think or feel that something's really important. Someone might feel dislike towards someone or something. Someone might feel like a situation is very enjoyable, or being around a certain character is enjoyable. Someone might think or feel that something or someone is funny. So as we are reading, we need to pay attention to what the character says and does to determine how they think or feel, which is the point of view. We're going to go back and reread part of The Impossible Pet Show, thinking about what is our character's point of view of this pet show. So how does the character think or feel about the pet show? We are going to organize our key details on this graphic organizer. A graphic organizer organizes our thoughts in order. So here's the first key detail, second key detail, third key detail. Then we ask ourselves, what do these key details have in common that show how the character or narrator thinks or feels? And that will help us to determine the point of view. Let's go back into the text. So I am going to close read the beginning of the text to identify key details that show how the character, what? Show me. You got it. Thinks or feels. Do that with me. Point to your brain, show the heart. It'll get into your brain that is what point of view is. Let's close read. This is our realistic fiction, a story that is fake or made up that could really happen. The Impossible Pet Show. My best friend Carla Hernandez called me on Thursday afternoon. Daniel, meet me in the park near the playground in 5 minutes. I have a great idea. This worried me because Carla's great ideas almost always mean big trouble for me. I dashed outside and jogged to the park. When I saw Carla, my heart sank because her gigantic dog, Perro, was with her. I liked everything about Carla except Perro. I've never had a pet, so I feel uncomfortable and nervous around animals. I'm going to pause there. I just read what the character said, our narrator. And the narrator used the words uncomfortable and nervous. That shows me what the narrator, this narrator is a character in the story, thinks and feels. So let's record that on our graphic organizer. Daniel is our character in the story that's narrating the story. Says that he is uncomfortable and nervous around animals. Well, that shows that his point of view of animals is that Daniel doesn't really like animals very much. Or we could just simply say Daniel feels uncomfortable with animals or anxious around animals. We're going to read on to identify 2 more key details. I'm embarrassed to say that I'm afraid of Carla's dog. Carla smiled. Isn't this the perfect location for a pet show? She asked. All the kids in the neighborhood can show off their pets' talents and demonstrate the things they do well. There are plenty of comfortable benches for our parents and friends to sit on, and since you don't have a pet to enter into the show, you will be the announcer. I just love looking at Daniel's face because his facial expression shows his point of view. I'm sorry, I apologized. But that's impossible! Crowds make me nervous and unsure. Besides, I don't like animals, remember? That's nonsense, said Carla. There's nothing to be concerned about because you'll do great. You'll be great. Just then, Paddle leaped up, slobbered all over me, and almost knocked me down. Yuck! Down, Paddle! Stay! I shouted. Paddle sat as still as a statue. Wow, you're good at that, said Carla. Now let's get started because we have a lot to do. By Saturday morning, I'd practiced announcing each pet's act 100 times. My stomach was doing flip-flops by the time the audience arrived. The size of the crowd made me feel even more anxious. There's a lot of key details in that paragraph that show how Daniel thinks or feels about the pet show, his point of view. Let's record these key details on our graphic organizer. Our first key detail is Daniel says that he's uncomfortable and nervous around animals. Well, that's not going to be a good thing if you're an announcer of a pet show. Daniel practiced announcing each pet's act 100 times. This shows me that he's nervous. That's why he practiced it 100 times, because he wants it to be perfect. His stomach did flip-flops by the time the audience arrived. Well, if your stomach is doing flip-flops, that, again, means you're nervous. So we need to think, what do all of these key details of what the character, who's our narrator of the story, says and does, what do all of these key details have in common? Right. They all show that Daniel is nervous. So we can determine the point of view. Daniel feels nervous about being the announcer of the pet show. So 3rd graders, we did it. I can identify the narrator's point of view. We close read the story and we identified key details that show what the character, who's the narrator of our text, thinks and feels about an event in the story. It's going to be your turn. When you're reading your books, think about the characters or the narrator's points of view of other characters and events in the story. Have a great time reading.